Hey gang, I'm going to show you how to install a light bar. Now, this is an early round hood. This is for Grumpy. But if you have a flat hood, like the 3110 sitting out here, or 2210, excuse me, then your light brackets actually bolt on either side, just like that. And the wiring would be the same between the two. Then if you have an early flip hood, B1 or Ward Squire or 700 or 725 or Wonder Boy, this is your headlight bracket. It mounts to the knockout on the hoods of the Wards, the Wonder Boys, the 700s and the 725s. I believe you have to drill a hole to mount this to the Allis-Chalmers, and I also don't believe this is the right shape for the Allis-Chalmers because it doesn't actually have a nose on the hood. The hood comes off just straight off the front. So you need to have your brackets or your light bar. So brackets, light bar, and you need to have your mounting hardware. For these, you can see the mounting hardware is 4 3/8 bolts, washers, lock nuts, and nuts. For this, you're using these two holes to mount it, and it has to be spaced. It has to be spaced down a little bit. So in order to do that, you know, you can have 5 6 3/8, or excuse me, 3/8 bolts like this. I'm just going with 1/4 20, so that's what I found spacers for. It'll be fine. So you're going to need 2 bolts long enough to go through the light bar, the spacers, and this thickness here at the back of the frame. You'll see there are already 2 holes provided for you. The reason you have to space the hood down is so, or excuse me, space the light bar down is so that it will clear the hood. So if you don't have the spacers in, when you go to put your hood on, the light bar is going to stop your hood from properly seating down into this part of the grill frame. The center bolt here is what the bolt goes through to mount to the engine. There's a plate on the engine over here. But the position that the light bar goes in, if this will stand up on its own and not tip over, it will. Okay. There are a couple of different light bars, but you have a flat, and then they kick up or down. Okay, see how they kick up or down? It is, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't believe I am. Okay. When you mount the light bar, you put the ears facing down, and then the light bar mounts underneath, and you have those sticking out just like that. That's the wrenches and whatnot part of the assembly. Taking your grill frame off is an easier way to do it. Go down through the top. Let me clamp you guys here, and we'll just show you really quick. And you go down through the top, and the reason you have 4 washers is this hole's a little bit big, and I'm using 1/4 20. You may not need to use washers if you're using the larger bolts and the larger spacers. So you go bolt, washer, spacer, light bar, washer, lock washer, and nut. Let me show you that. See that stack up? That will put your light bar down far enough so that your hood will properly close. These spacers need to be between 5/8 and 3/4 of an inch. so that you've got enough room to get your hood to seat all the way down. So repeat over here on this side, be a washer and the bolt through the top and through the spacer and through the light bar, and then washer, lock washer, and nut. And you can get all that done, and it is a whole lot easier to do it with it out of the off the tractor. So we got that. And just tighten everything down. Come over here, tighten it down. And this is what it should look like. Right there. Alright, once you get to that point, you're ready to install your lights. But they're going to be either aftermarket lights or they're going to be used lights. Like this one, it's boogered bad. This is going to be the back light, and it has its own on and off switch. So yeah, it's a good idea to test your lights before you mount them, just to make sure that they are working. So I'm going to put my wire here on this battery, and then I'm going to touch. Let me take the bracket off, make it a little easier. There we go. Okay, that is your ground. The body of the light is your ground, and then you have your hot wire. And then, as you can see, everything lights up. So when you do mount your bracket and your light, you need to make sure you have a good ground. So just do the reverse. If you have that bracket, which is for this bracket is actually for a B10, not the B12, but it will work with the B12. You just use the top mounting bolt. There are two mounting bolts for the backrest on either side, and you use the top ones. So I also wanted to check and see if my light switch is working. So let's see here. We've got light, and light switch is working. Good. And test all your bulbs. Test them all. And it doesn't matter which way you go. You can go positive to... See? Doesn't matter which direction you go. I just went what would normally be negative over to positive. The light bulbs don't care either way. If you have loose bulbs that you've not put in your housings yet, then same thing. You just come in and test across them. Positive, negative. But check all your lights prior to installation, just so that you know your bulbs are working. And then installing these headlights is really, really easy. These are new old stock that I've had for a number of years that I put Harley driving light trim rings on. And these are takeoffs. These driving light rings are takeoffs, because a lot of Harley guys customize and change their bezels around and stuff like that. So you can usually find just those trim rings on eBay for a little bit of nothing if you want to dress up your tractor a little bit. And you just go in. Hand tight's fine right now. That's all you need to do, is just hand tight right now, because you've got wiring to do. Come over here. But you see there is a spacer on here too. If you do not have this spacer, it's going to crush the body of the light. Make sure you have that spacer, because that's a carriage bolt with a hole drilled through it. And when you tighten your nut down against the spacer, it is tightening directly to the carriage bolt. When you tighten to here, you're actually tightening to the crimped portion of the bezel, and this is what happens. They collapse on you. So make spacers if you don't have spacers with your lights, just to keep from damaging them. Get your wire through, get the bulb through, get your nut down the wire, and just loosely assemble. You can use a lock washer if you want, but I have found that it's not necessary once you have these tightened down. They are golden and good to go. So now we're ready to put the front grill support back on the tractor, and then we'll get into doing the wiring. So you guys hang on. I will get the grill frame mounted to Grouchy, and then I'll show you the wiring. Wiring is really simple. You only need to join these two wires and run one wire to your regulator's battery post, unless you want them switched, which you are going to want them switched, or they will be on 24/7. Just a little twist there for you. I'll show you where there's a knockout on the dash to install the switch, and how to wire the switch and get the headlights working. And then you just zip tie your wires back, make sure everything is nice and clean and sanitary, and send it. So we'll be back for that. Alright, let's cover everything you're going to need for the light install as far as the wiring goes. You're going to need a flathead screwdriver for your switch, and for your bulbs if you're putting new bulbs in the housings. Shrink tube. I highly recommend doing this, especially if you're going to be out in the snow and stuff like that. You want sealed connections. A selection of terminal types, including butt connectors. Definitely going to need some of those. If you have some waterproof butt connectors, even better. But that's where the shrink tube comes into play. And a little trick: before you shrink the tube, pack the ends with some dielectric grease. That'll help create a moisture barrier once you heat it up and it shrinks down. You're going to need a set of side cuts, crimpers of your choice. All different kinds out there. Even if that's what you've got, then use that. There's the crimper down there. Here's your stripper. You can use that type if that's what you've got. And then wire strippers, again, use what you've got. Wire. And something to shrink the heat shrink tube. It can be a little torch like this, or just a regular Bic lighter. Whatever you want to use to shrink that tube down. So next up, we're going to go look at the tractor and show you where you mount the switch to the dash. And after we get done showing you that, we're going to loosely mount the grill frame. I'll explain why you loosely mount it. And you're going to go through and get your wiring done. If you're mounting a rear light, you will also need a length of baling wire so that you can fish your wire through the tunnel to the back of the tractor, because you do need to get a wire from the regulator to the back of the tractor. I don't recommend making any direct connections to the battery. Go through the regulated voltage regulator, and you can put an inline fuse in if you want as well. Not necessary, but you can. I've already got an inline fuse in the electrical system, so if I overload it, it will take the whole electrical system out. So when I wire it, it's going to be wired according to Simplicity and Allis-Chalmers regular wiring, and it will be protected by that 20 amp fuse. So let's get over here to the tractor and I'll show you where your light switch goes. Alright, we are at Grumpy Alice, and you see this faint circle right there. That faint circle, that is your knockout for putting your light switch in. So you simply knock that out and then you can mount your light switch. I would do your wiring prior to mounting the light switch just so that it's easier to work with. This is the 20 amp fuse I was talking about that's already built into the electrical system. And the terminal that you're going to be using is the battery terminal. And the battery terminal in this case is this one right here. Then you have your field and your generator. Or other way around, generator and then field. There are a couple of different types of regulators. Some will have the battery connection under the regulator and it'll be a square instead of this big rectangle. You would have to remove your regulator or loosen it so you can get to that terminal at the back side and get your headlight wire, headlight / taillight wire ran. Then you can remount that and then use that single wire, because like I said before, the entire tractor is a ground. It's your negative. The entire tractor is your battery negative. So the connections that you make, you're only making the positive connections. You are not making anything beyond that. Now, one thing you can do if you want to, it means taking the tank out in order to get to it, which is why we're not going to wire the way that I had planned on it. Nope, wait. In looking, looks like you can come off of, nope, you don't want to do that. Yeah. The only other way would be to take your gas tank out and use the opposite side of the amp meter that this is connected to, because this goes directly to battery. That wire right there is going directly to battery, and it comes through here, wraps around here, comes out and goes to there. This is really the easiest place to do it. For, you know, a prettier cosmetic installation, yeah, you can go to here and then thread your wire through, but ultimately your wire is going to come up here and kind of meet in the middle between these two wires right here, right there. That's where your two wires come together to form one single positive wire going to that point. So you won't need a lot of wire here. Where you are going to need a good bit of wire is when you're mounting your rear light, because your rear light's going to be mounted way back here. So in order to get it wired, you have to get a wire from your regulator post all the way down and out the back. Sounds easy? It pretty much is easy, and I will show you how to do that because we're going to be mounting this light. This bracket is not the correct bracket for the B-12. It is the correct one for the B-10. So I'm going to be mounting mine kind of cockeyed on the bottom hole of the seat, right down here. That's where I'm going to be mounting mine. It's going to be kind of sideways. I don't care about symmetry at this point. I just need it to be free and clear so that I can use my switch, because if I mount it here, right row, my switch hits. Now I do have another seat back that I may be able to use. I'll have to see if I can't find it. If I can find it, it has the correct 2 bolts or 2 T-nuts in the backing to mount it correctly, which would lower the backrest and then give me permissions to get that mounted here. But if not, it's not a major deal. So I'm going to punch this out, and all you need is just a you can use a center punch like that and just get one side to poke out. Once you get one side to poke out, we'll just go ahead and do it now, that way you guys can see. Nothing to be afraid of. I'm going to come in from the back side and punch that out this way. Give me just a second. I'm going to grab a pair of pliers as well so I can grab a hold of it and twist it out. If anyone's ever mounted a electrical, uh-oh, hang on guys, got a problem. Okay, I'm back. That was really weird. I look over, I've got the wood stove going. Yes, it's cold out. I have the wood stove going. And I looked over there and I've got my little squirrel cage blower sitting right there. Smoke was coming out of the front of that squirrel cage blower. But see what happened right there? See the smoke blowing? It was blowing directly into into the squirrel cage blower and then just wafting out the top of the squirrel cage, and I thought that I had an electrical issue. Fortunately, not. Whew! I'm glad of that. Let me check my heart rate. Yep, it's still working. Okay, I'm just going to come in from the back and knock it out. Go to one side or the other, left or right side, doesn't matter, because it is notched at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So either side will help it pop out. Just give it a good whack. And the whole thing might just pop out for you, like it did in this case. Easy peasy. So there's our little slug. That's where your switch is going to mount. Now let's get the grill mounted and get ready to do the wiring. No, we're not done. I told you to loosely install the grill. The reason that we loosely install the grill is so that we can align the hood so that the hood will latch and fall down into the grooves. So we're lined up front and back. Once you get those hood bolts lined up with where they're supposed to go, then you can come back and tighten these down, put your center one in, and take care of things that way. I now return you to your regularly scheduled broadcasting of installing these lights and running the wires. Alright, step one, join your two headlight wires, which are here and here, to another wire with any means. You can solder them together if you want to. I myself want to be able to pull all of them apart, just for whatever reason that I have that ability. And I will heat shrink. I will lay this one down like this, and I will heat shrink all of that so that it's all protected. All this is a double connector with the ability to put another spade in there. Alright, so you don't have to do it that way. You can twist them all together and put a wire nut on them. I cringe at that because wire nuts are for household current, but you can do it however you want. Just make sure that once you get it done, that everything is as watertight as you can get it. Now, being up under the hood is going to be relatively watertight, but snow blows and it goes up against a hot engine. Of course, the wind blowing across the engine is going to help keep from any accumulation on it, but just keep it away from being aground. So this is the ground. So if I didn't put anything on that at all, and this thing was going around and just hitting that head bolt, I would constantly blow my 20 amp fuse up there. So get yourself more than enough wire attached to it so that you can then move to getting the switch wired and getting the wire wired to the regulator. So that's what we're going to cover next. Alright, now we're down to the final piece of the puzzle, which is getting power to your headlights. We already covered that. We come up, I have one wire here going to the battery terminal on my regulator, and then this wire here is going to the switch, as well as the regulator wire going to the switch. This switch has two sides, so my rear light is going to get wired here, and I am just going to piggyback my power wire from this side to this side, so that I don't even have to run a second wire up to my regulator. I will let the switch have positive power on the two back terminals, and then the two terminals down here at the bottom, when you flip the switch, will activate. So there is the switch mounted. I've got the screwdriver underneath just so that it won't ground out. It's on a rubber insulated handle. And flip the switch, and you have lights. So pretty easy, pretty straightforward. The lights are grounded. They get their ground just from being mounted to the tractor. Then you run your, and these will get zip tied out of the way. Then you run your power wire from your switch to your headlights, to both headlights. And then you run your power wire from the battery terminal to the other terminal on the switch. Just that simple. Do the same thing for the back light. You have to chase a wire from the front to the back. You have to be able to pull a wire through and secure it where it's not going to get chewed up by anything. I've got a whole lot going on underneath here with the addition of the hydro lift. So I'm just going to wire it and get it done and show it to you finished. If you have the hydro lift, your best bet is to run your wire on this side of the tunnel, this side of the tractor. You can take your side cover off and physically run the wire through without having to fish it through with a piece of baling wire, just by going through the side there. Or you can take a piece of fishing or baling wire and just go through and fish it all the way back until you see the end of your baling wire. Tape your wire to it. You'll have a strand of wire here ready to pull through. Just pull it through and pull it up, and it's actually, you can see right here, you can see my fingers. There's a number of places where that wire can come up through the dash tower and just get connected there. Single wire. That's it. Easy peasy. So thus ends Grumpy's time on camera for the time being. I'm going to semi-retire Ugly Alice, and Grumpy Alice is going to take over a lot of the tasks that Ugly Alice has done. Ugly Alice has served me very, very well. There's nothing wrong with Ugly Alice, and I just want to keep it that way. I want to put Ugly Alice up with just starting a new chapter is what we're doing. We're starting a new chapter with Grumpy Alice. It's been 15 years of Ugly Alice. Let's let the next 15 years and the next however many millions of views on the channel go to a newcomer. Does that work for you? Well, I didn't realize it. That tire's really, really, really close to that. I need to bend that in just a little bit. There we go. It was really close. So anyway, there we go. We've got the hydro lift installed. Got the right hand lift installed. We've got the 16 horse installed. We've got lights installed. Yeehaw! Hope you guys enjoyed this series. Promise you, I'll see you when I see you.